and I wanted to bet on the dating category in India, and I wanted to bet on an Indian company doing it, right? You have the Tinders of the world and the Hinges of the world coming to India, but I wanted to bet on an Indian company doing it, and they just seemed like the right team. If dating will grow in India, Truly Madly will be the company that wins, hopefully, according to me.
Good afternoon to one and all. We here at the Trading Horse have started an initiative where we are going to have a small talk with the industry experts like Mr. Arjun Vaidya. Hi Arjun, it's a pleasure to have you for a conversation.
Yeah, Anushka, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So there are very few who inspire with decency, with a strong set of values, who believe in what they say, who are the torch bearers of not just a legacy, but who are deeply passionate about India. So taking Ayurveda and 150 years of family legacy to the 21st century, Arjun Vaidya is the first Ayurvedic entrepreneur, and he has featured in the Forbes 30 under 30 Asia list and Business World's 40 under 40 list. So, Arjun, I will start off the conversation by asking about your past. So, could you please tell something about your past?
Sure. So I actually talk about my family and my childhood because that has a lot to do with what I ended up doing with Dr. Vaidyas as well, right? So Vaidya, my last name means Ayurvedic doctor, and I come from a legacy of 150 years of Ayurveda in my family. My grandfather, great grandfather, and generations before, all Ayurvedic doctors. So family, we had a large sort of IP, intellectual property, more than 100 plus formulations passed down from generation to generation. But there was no business as such. My dada ran a clinic, so did his father, and generations before. My dada was a pretty famous doctor. He had more than 300 patients a day coming to his clinic. And one thing he believed in was service, right? So he never charged for a consultation. It was free to meet him, and you only paid a sort of pretty reasonable amount to get the medicine. My dad was sort of graduating from college in the late 80s, and he believed that he could take what my dada had and make it into a really large consumer brand, right? So unfortunately, my dada was a doctor. He didn't really care for business, sales, distribution, marketing, or strategy, and so he didn't really understand the need to start a business as well, right? And so that's where they left it. My dada continued. My father started his own business in the jewelry and watch space. But I was born with juvenile bronchitis, right? I suffered from asthma. I grew up with pumps, nebulizers, steroids, inhalers. And at age 7, I remember when I was in the second grade, my dada stopped me from playing cricket because there was too much dust on the cricket field. So asthma had a deep impact on my life, and 14 years of Ayurvedic treatment later, my dada cured me of asthma, right? So I started playing cricket again, and Ayurveda gave me the ability to do a little bit more in life and lead what I thought was a normal life, right? So Ayurveda was more than just a family legacy. It had a sort of personal impact on my life. I went to the US when I was 17 and a half for my undergrad. I went to a college called Brown, and I studied economics and politics there. But I also saw a move towards natural organic products, right? I saw the whole revolution with Whole Foods, and that interested me that, these customers are willing to pay more money for these products. What was also really interesting was that yoga had been repackaged, right? Yoga mats, yoga gyms, yoga pants, Lululemon, a multi-billion-dollar industry in the US. And I just started thinking, like, why have they taken what we had, repackaged it, and sold it back to us? Like, we should have been the people taking it to the world. So I came back to India with that thought process. I started a job at a private equity fund, my first job out of college. Fortunate to get a job straight into private equity. Most people don't have that opportunity. And I worked at a consumer sector fund called L Capital, now called L Catterton, and spent a lot of time on the consumer sector in the Indian consumer story, right? And that taught me a lot about big changes in India, right? So I grew up in India, which was obsessed with imported products. They believed that if it was Indian, it was substandard. If it was imported, it was good. That was changing. Indians were happy to consume quintessentially Indian brands and products. And Ayurveda was undergoing a renaissance, right? Ministry of Ayush was created. Government changed. Patanjali revolution was happening. And thousands of customers were coming back and saying, we want to know more about Ayurveda, right? So it was in this time period that unfortunately my dada passed as well. I had some point made him a promise that I'd take forward the family Ayurveda legacy. So yeah, that happened. My dada passed. I saw this opportunity to make Ayurvedic products appealing and accessible to modern consumers. Quit my job, and at age 24 and a half in October 2016, I started a company. I named it after my dada, so the brand was called Dr. Vaidyas, and that's my past that led to the company starting.
It's quite interesting journey you had. Okay, so in your journey with Dr. Vaidya, and you can tell us something about your seed funding rounds.
Yeah, so we didn't actually raise any external capital at Dr. Vaidyas. My family, my dada had left behind some money in the company, and my family was kind enough to give us that money to start. And so that was my seed round. My family actually did our seed or angel round. I was fortunate that my family had the trust and sort of the ability to give me that capital. And so my family did the seed round. We didn't raise any seed capital. We raised a Series A sort of 3 years in or 2.5 years into the business in June 2019. But there was no seed round as such.
Okay, so as you mentioned, you have worked in Catterton, the equity arm of Louis Vuitton. And can you tell us about the experience you had at this firm and how equity investing has changed your mind and how it's been to be a part of the Indian consumer story?
Yeah, so I think it was an exceptional experience for me at the age that I did it, right? So I was straight out of college. I had not seen a P&L or a balance sheet in my life. So I learned how to read P&Ls and balance sheets. But more importantly, as an investor, you get to meet the best in class in the sector, right? So across apparel, lifestyle, fashion, retail, food and beverage, jewelry, watches, cars, bikes, all of these sort of consumer categories, I got to meet the best entrepreneurs, right? So we had invested in 3 companies: Fab India, Genesis Luxury, which brought Jimmy Choo, Bottega Veneta, Paul Smith, Canali, all of these brands to India, and PVR Cinemas. These were the portfolio companies. So obviously got the amazing opportunity to interact with these people. But also I met 150 different entrepreneurs, right? Across all of these categories. And got to interact with the top minds in each of these spaces at age 22 and 23. And not many people get that opportunity, right? So just sitting in the
Yeah.
room with William Bissell, Ajay Bijli, these amazing entrepreneurs and other folks who we didn't invest in but got a chance to meet them, um, really inspired me. The other thing which I got very lucky to do is I got to work on e-commerce. So the fund had not invested in e-commerce in Europe or the US or China. So they wanted to do something in India. So I got to spend time on businesses like Myntra, Pepperfry, Zivame, Bluestone. And I got to spend time with Mukesh Bansal. I got to spend time with Amrish Murthy. I got to spend time with all of these amazing entrepreneurs at the age that I was. And so I got an amazing mix of learning about B2C brands as well as e-commerce, which at that
Yeah.
age was an invaluable experience. And I'm so fortunate to have had that experience.
Yeah, that's very nice. So, as you are an active angel investor, tell us about your recent ventures.
Yeah, so I think I didn't do any angel investing until I knew that I was exiting Dr. Vaidyas, selling the company. Because while
Yeah.
I was at Dr. Vaidyas, my focus was only my company. And we had the good fortune of building the company to India's largest Ayurveda brand online. And 2 months ago, being able to exit the business or get acquired by a really large group, RP-Sanjiv Goenka Group, multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. But then I realized that, look, like I had the experience of building, but now there should be a way for me to give back to younger, early stage entrepreneurs, right? And so, been an active angel now, invested in 11 companies across largely 3 spaces: consumer internet, consumer brands, and enablers to e-commerce. Uh, Enablers to e-commerce is very interesting because I think that whether or not the brands make money, the enablers, the logistics
Yeah.
partners, the payment gateways, the packaging companies, the CRM tools, they have to make money, right? Because you need them as
Yeah.
long as you go. So those are the spaces that I invest in actively, and I choose to invest in companies where I understand what's going on. I understand the ecosystem. That's why I've chosen these 3 spaces, and usually stuff outside of that, unless it's very opportunistic or I really believe in the founder, I don't touch. And other than that, it's not just about putting money, right? There are 7 brands that I actively mentor now. So just all this, I was spending time with one of the brands I mentor. They take structured time from me on a weekly basis, and I help them with specific problems and solving certain things. I also work as a venture partner with a revenue-based financing early stage venture debt fund called GetVantage. The most fun is actually teaching. So I saw that there is no resources or playbooks on building a consumer brand or D2C brand in India. And so I wrote a playbook as I was exiting Dr. Vaidyas, and we taught that as a cohort-based course now to more than 70 entrepreneurs over the last 60 days. So I think that's what's keeping me busy right now until I figure out what's next in my journey.
Okay. So, as you are an angel investor of Truly Madly, you have invested along with Paytm's Vijay Shekhar Sharma and Unacademy's Roman Saini. So, what do you think? Where Truly Madly is going from here?
I'm an angel investor, so I can't comment on where it will go. I'll tell you why I invested though.
Yeah.
Really like the founder, I think Snehal has done an exceptional job. I spent some time with him. I also believe that their product is really good. And I wanted to bet on the dating category in India, and I wanted to bet on an Indian company doing it, right? You have the Tinders of the world and the Hinges of the world coming to India, but I wanted to bet on an Indian company doing it, and they just seemed like the right team. If dating will grow in India, Truly Madly will be the company that wins, hopefully, according to me.
Yeah, the teenagers will do. Okay, so Blue Smart Mobility has investors like you and Deepika Padukone's Ka Enterprises LLP, and Blue Smart has recently added 130 electric charging stations in the NCR region alone. So, do you think these stations can be used by other EV brands entering into India like Tesla?
I hope so. I'm not an expert in the EV category, to be honest. Actually, I didn't lead that investment. My brother did, but it seems like
Okay,
a good company, and they're doing great work. I've had a chance to speak to the founder, but yeah, I'm not an expert in EV, so not the right person to ask that.
okay. Okay, so recently in April, six Indian startups have turned into unicorns. So, what are your views on Indian startups ecosystem?
I mean, it's amazing, right? I'm so glad to see that. I think that unicorn is just a term, whether you're a unicorn or a soonicorn or a smaller startup as well. I think um, the ecosystem is ripe, capital is readily available, and entrepreneurs are doing an amazing job. I think that capital is not the only thing that should be celebrated. I think really efficient bootstrap businesses should also be celebrated. But I think that overall, Indian startup ecosystem is in a great place. I think I speak to founders every single day doing amazing things from across this country, whether it's large cities or small cities. And I think that's the real power of what we have here. We're a growing market with a lot of opportunity, and young people are doing some amazing work, and that's what keeps me excited.
Yeah, I guess the government has definitely improved it. So, apart from angel investing, are you actively involved in equity investment also?
Yes, but again, that we invest as a family office, and so I'm not the only person who takes those decisions. I take those decisions with my father and my brother, but I'm not an expert in that space, so I would not be the right person to talk to
Okay.
about that.
Okay, okay. So as we can see from 2019 to 21, you tripled the valuation of your company, Herbolab, sorry, which makes Ayurvedic medicines under the brand Dr. Vaidya, and you exited from the industry after 16% of annual CAGR growth. So what's your future plans?
Yeah, I think it was a nice journey. We built the business for 4.5 years, and I think we did some interesting work. We became India's largest Ayurveda brand online. We fulfilled more than 1.5 million orders across this country, across 16,500 pin codes. Went really deep. We were fortunate to partner with RPSG, and eventually sort of pass the business on to them. Future plans? I don't know yet. It's been 60 days since I exited the business. I told you what I'm keeping busy with. I know I love the consumer brand startup and e-commerce ecosystem. So yeah, you should hear from me on the next venture pretty soon. But I'm exploring a few ideas right now.
Okay, so after listening to your journey, it sounds like you made Ayurveda really cool, for the youth, for the younger generation. And so, what was the path you followed to market this? Because brand building, take time, and because it's difficult to convince someone to buy your product. So, how did you do that?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Look, I think Anushka, if I ask you, right, you probably grew up having Chavanprash, or you had Chavanprash at some point, or you were
Yeah.
forced by your mom or your grandmom to have Chavanprash, but you hated having Chavanprash, right? It's a black, bitter, sticky, inconvenient paste. And so there are hundreds of thousands of people across India like you who know that Chavanprash is good for them, but they don't like to have it because of the form factor, black, bitter, sticky, inconvenient, etc. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what we set out to solve, right? So we said, hey, look, Ayurveda has a lot to offer, it has a lot of value, it has a lot of amazing products, but it needs to establish a connect with modern consumers. And that was the idea behind Dr. Vaidya's New Age Ayurveda, Ayurveda for the 21st century, right? So taking our ancient 5,000-year-old science and 150 years of our family legacy and repackaging and rebranding to appeal to modern consumers. That was the thought process, the idea. And we leveraged the power of digital as well, right? So using the power of D2C, using the power of digital, can you get Ayurveda to the most remote parts of this country where consumers don't have access or don't understand, right? And we went
Yeah.
and we sold our products and we got customers in Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, but we also went to Muzaffarnagar, Trichy, Imphal, Anantnag. That's the real value that we were able to build and really explain and communicate to these customers in a format that they understand. The most innovative product that I say we launched was actually a product called Chakash. So it took Chyawanprash and put it in a toffee form, right? Nobody's ever thought of Chyawanprash in that format
Yeah.
and so it made kids enjoy Chyawanprash. And that's what we tried to solve.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice idea because I used to have Chyawanprash like an ice cream. So, looking into this fast paced world, people usually want an instant cure for any disease. They are totally impatient. Like, if they have a fever, then they have a paracetamol. So, what do you think? How can Ayurveda counter this culture of instant medication?
Yeah, I don't think there's a um, us versus them. I think a lot of people view it like that. They view allopathy versus Ayurveda, and I don't think that's the way to look at it. Think about this example, right? There is a village, and there is a river that flows through the village. In the summer, the river is dry, and so the villagers can cross through the river. But after the monsoons, the river gets full. Right now, the villagers have to cross through the river to get to the other side. Now, in this, there are two ways to cross the river. Right, one, they can swim
Yeah.
across the river, but they don't know how to swim. So you can either put them on a raft and take them across the river, or you can teach them how to swim in the village so they can cross the river themselves. And that's the difference between allopathy and Ayurveda. At some point, if a villager is in a hurry and they don't know how to swim, you have to take them on a raft. But in the long term, you need to teach them how to swim. And so if you have a fever, the example you gave, have a paracetamol because
Yeah.
Ayurveda doesn't have an instant cure. But if you don't want to get a fever again, build your immunity with Ayurveda. So in this way, actually, both the sciences can coexist and they can both have a synergistic relationship. And not many people think about or talk about that, right? So that's my view. They're different paradigms. They solve different kinds of problems, but they can exist together.
Okay. And can you please provide your view on B2C and the B2B sector? And this became very important when MNC with deep pockets are entering into this business.
You're talking about B2C versus B2B Ayurveda?
Yeah.
I think both are great sectors. I think there are enough businesses doing B2B and enough businesses doing B2C. We did a bit of both. So we did manufacture for other brands because we had our own facility, and bulk of our sales was B2C. I think they have different core expertise and competencies. B2C is a lot of brand building. B2B is a lot of efficiency. But we are fortunate to do a little bit of both. And I think that it takes a different mindset of business to crack both. But yeah, B2C seems like the exciting new way to do things, but it comes with its own fair share of challenges.
Okay, so I mean, even in today era, people think twice to be an entrepreneur, and because it has downsides and it's very risky, it's not secure. But the industry has to come to address the issue of unemployment. So, what is your view for the young people who have a vision of starting a business, but they're scared? And does any of these things bother you?
I was always scared, and I continue to remain scared even after we scale the business. Right? What people don't realize is that just because a business looks like it's doing well, the entrepreneur doesn't lose that fear. That fear is healthy as well, right? That fear that what will happen, how do I do this? It exists in everyone, right? Even if you look at very large startup, I'm sure Jeff Bezos has some fears as well, right? I'm sure Vijay Shekhar Sharma has some fears as well. I'm sure Kunal Shah has some fears as well. And similarly, all of us have fears, right? So I think fear is healthy. What advice I would give to people who want to start again or want to start new businesses, young people? Three pieces of advice, right? The first one is you can't be half in. Entrepreneurship is not a side hustle. You can't be slightly pregnant. Either you're in or you're out. If you're in, go all in. If you're out, it's okay. But don't be half in because that's not going to lead to success. The second thing is that entrepreneurship needs thick skin and resilience, right? You got to fight through a lot of failure and learn to accept that failure and move on. So I run a podcast called Direct to a Billion Consumers, and I just recorded an episode which I released yesterday with Chaitanya, the founder of WakeFit. WakeFit is India's largest e-commerce mattress company. Chaitanya had 2 failed startups before he started WakeFit. And in between, because he couldn't continue his startup, he also worked at startups, right? And then finally came to the idea of WakeFit. But he talks so succinctly and so humbly about accepting those failures and learning from them. And all of the failures from his previous 2 startups, he made sure he didn't make those mistakes when he ran WakeFit, right? So resilience to fight through the tough times, but also learn from failures. And the last one is you can't do it alone, right? Founders, obviously, the most passionate, enthusiastic, driven people, but you can't do everything on your own, right? You need a team. You need to build a strong team that does it
Yeah.
with you. There are only 24 hours in a day, and you have to sleep for at least 6, if not 8 hours, of those 24 hours. So you can't burn the midnight oil for 20 hours a day for 1 year. Doesn't work. Your body will give way. So you need to be able to let go and work with a team. So yeah, just recapping on the three. One, you can't be half in. Two, you got to have thick skin, grit, and resilience. And three, you can't do it alone. You got to do it with a team.
Okay, so my last question would be, what do you believe the transformation of Ayurveda actually began and why?
When do I believe, or what do I believe?
What do you believe?
What do I believe has happened, or what will happen?
Yeah, what happened? What happened to the transformation? Like around in 2016, we didn't take Ayurveda so seriously. So
Well, I
what
think that
happened according to
Ayurveda,
you?
Ayurveda underwent a renaissance from, I would say, 2014 onwards, since the government changed, Ministry of Ayush was created. Prime Minister spent a lot of time talking about Ayurveda. Patanjali revolution happened, and in general, Indians
Yeah,
became more health conscious and wellness conscious. So I think 2014, 2019 is what I call the renaissance of Ayurveda, the time when age-old Ayurveda came back into our lives and into the fore. And
yeah,
I think from then, something else happened, right? COVID hit. And so Ayurveda had an
yeah,
inflection point. While all other industries were very badly hit, the government made it very clear that Ayurveda, Ashwagandha, Giloy, Amla, Chavanprash, Kadha, all of these things will help you to build your immunity against this virus. And so from 2020 onwards, Ayurveda literally went through an inflection. And now everyone's talking about Ayurveda. But I think nothing's changed with the science. I think the
yeah.
science still remains the same, but I think that more and more people are interested in the science, and with that, I think brands are also understanding how to engage with customers better. So I think that's what's changed.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Arjun, for having a conversation. It's wonderful to have you. And I would also like to thank Pratyush for inviting Arjun for this session. Thank you so much, Arjun, for sharing your journey, your views on startup and market, and wish you all the success in the upcoming years. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anushka. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye bye.